building an indie business in the center of venture capital. I am Alex Edmonds, also known as SupremeRumHam on the internet, and this is the Building an Indie Business podcast. Okay, so today we will be discussing fractional art. So I'm going to be talking about what fractional art is, how to make money from fractional art, how to value art, expenses in art, problems, revenue ideas, my opinion, and revenue reducers, as always. Okay, so let's get into it. What is fractional art? Fractional art is a segment of the art market. So the art market is buying a $10 million piece of art, and then you hold it and you flip it later. So fractional art is buying that $10 million piece of art. Well, like a company buying that $10 million piece of art, and then they sell shares of that art to the general public. So someone can buy $100 worth of a Banksy, right? So how do those consumers make money from the fractional art? Well, there's two ways. They can make money through the secondary market, which is a second market for the art. So you buy the art shares, you hold them, and then maybe you want to sell it. So you buy the fractional art for $20 a share, and maybe 6 months later you want to sell it for $22. Well, on the platform that you buy it from, they might have a secondary market with other consumers that want to buy that Banksy for $22 a share, right? So there's that. And then sometimes the art gets sold to maybe a private buyer or another platform, and when the piece of art gets sold at that new price, the consumers make money on that sale. So let's say it gets sold for $25 or $30 a share. Then the consumers get that revenue back, right? Okay. So how do you value art? I found this really interesting because, okay, Banksy has pieces that are $4 million, $5 million, $10 million. So how do you determine the value of Banksy's art, right? So one factor in the value of a piece of art is the artist's previous sales. So let's say Banksy, in 2021, Banksy has sold two pieces of art, for $4 and $5 million, and now he has a third piece on the market, right? So that might sell for $4 to $6 million because that's Banksy's market price, right? And then another thing, which factors into the value of the art, is maybe the artist is in the news, right? So maybe he's in the Bay Area and he's spray painting walls and people are hearing about it. Maybe that's it, that 2021 piece that's going for $6 million, maybe it goes for $7 or $8 million because people in the art market are interested in his stuff and they're hearing about him constantly. And, he's in the news, right? So that's another way to value a piece of art, or another factor in the value of a piece of art, right? Okay. And then there's condition. So, some art pieces, they're 100 years old, right? So at some paint or some mediums, they might deteriorate over time. But if a piece of art is deteriorated, it's all brown when it's supposed to be yellow, that devalues the art. So if it's well conditioned, it's in perfect condition, that means the art has more value, right? And then there's authenticity. It's very common to, make a copy of a piece of art, right? So sometimes a buyer might not buy a piece of art that's real. It's not by the artist, right? So I can paint Andy Warhol's soup can, Campbell's soup can, right? And I can make it perfectly, an exact carbon copy of his original, right? But that doesn't give it value because it's not a Warhol original. It's a SupremeRumHam original, right? So, but someone might buy my SupremeRumHam original because they think it's a Warhol original. And, if it's not authentic, then they're paying $4 million for something that's maybe worth $500. I don't know. I'm giving myself a lot of credit there. But yeah, if they find out that the Warhol original that they thought they bought is a SupremeRumHam original, that devalues that piece of art that they bought for $4 million, right? And then maybe Warhol, he secretly, created 3 or 4 copies of that Campbell soup can, but he never showed them to anyone, but they're in like a basement somewhere. So if there are more copies of that Campbell soup can, that devalues the original one, because what gives art value is that it's one of one by this one artist, right? So if that one of one becomes one of 4, that makes it less valuable, right? Okay, so then expenses. So when you sell something on the secondary market, there are fees for that. So you have to pay those fees, right? And then they call it an IPO when they offer a new piece of art to the general public, right? So they're just like a direct listing or an IPO on the public market or on like the NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange. There are expenses for underwriting this IPO, right? Okay, and then this next one I'm gonna have to read to you word for word because I didn't get a chance to break it down. So let me read this expense. The offering size equals the sum of the estimated purchase price and the platform's anticipated paying for the painting, let's say $9 million, plus approximately 11% of such amount, approximately 10% of the maximum aggregated offering amount, or $990,000 as an upfront payment or true-up payment to the platform, which compensates and reimburses the segregated portfolio of the platform that will acquire the painting for general operating costs, offering costs, sourcing, and purchase pricing and costs. That is not grammatically correct. I didn't write it though. Import taxes, if any, and interest and commitment to the purchase the painting. Okay, so what that means is the consumers have to pay the platform for all the work that they're doing, for buying the original painting, then offering it, the operating costs of the painting, so, keeping it in storage, making sure that the value, the condition, does not deteriorate. Then they sell the painting, so they take a cut of that fee, then they have to transfer it. So all of that. For this $9 million painting, they charge $990,000 for that. So, yeah, and that number gets worked into the price of the offering, right? Okay. So, problems, right? So, I got some problems with these people and you're going to hear about it. Okay. So, limited supply, right? So, as a consumer on one of these platforms, I'm only able to purchase the options that are on the website, right? I can't make a request. So they have a Warhol, they have Banksy, they have Basquiat, they have a Herring. But let's say I don't know another artist. um, let's say I want a SupremeRumHam. I want a SupremeRumHam. I want to buy $500 worth of a SupremeRumHam painting, right? I can only buy what they're offering, right? So I can't buy that. So that's one issue. And then there's knowing the true value of a piece of art. So the piece of art that I took that piece from is $9 million. That's the value of that painting, plus the fees, right? So I have to believe that at the time of the offering, that painting is worth more than $9.9 million, right? But how do I know that? How do I know that there's someone else out there that will value this painting at $10 million, right? I don't. I just have to hope that they do, right? And then I read all these documents, dude. I read every one of these documents that this platform offered. And they have different types of shares. They have A shares and they have B shares. It's like a stock, right? You have voting shares and you have non-voting shares. They sell you A shares, which are non-voting shares. So I have no say in what happens to the painting. Let's say someone wants to purchase the painting after 6 months for $11 million. And let's say $11 million is not a price that I want. I want it to go a little higher, or I want to keep my shares. I want them to sell the painting for $11 million. Sell all the $11 million shares except mine. Let me keep my shares, right? I can't do that. They just sell the painting and they give me back the money plus the interest, right? So that's one thing that that's a problem I had, right? Okay. And then there's a minimum and maximum of shares that I could buy for the painting. So the minimum was, I believe, $500 worth of shares, and that was so $500 at $20 a share. That was 25 shares minimum, right? And then I can only buy $10,000 worth of shares. So $10,000 divided by 20, 500 shares. So 50 and 500. Those are the min and max. And if I wanted more, if I wanted less, I couldn't. Or no, I could on the secondary market. So if I wanted to buy $200 worth of a painting, I had to wait 3 months for the painting to be offered on the secondary market for $20, right? Hoping someone wanted to get rid of their shares for $20. And then if I wanted to buy $10,000 worth of a painting, I couldn't, right? So there's that. Okay. And then the platform does not take suggestions for paintings to purchase. So like I said, there's Warhol, there's Banksy, there's Basquiat, but maybe I want a SupremeRumHam painting. I can't suggest that to them. I could email support, but who knows if support is going to pass that message along. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying over here? Okay. Okay. So another problem I had was that so let's say I buy a Banksy on the secondary market. I buy shares of a Banksy on the secondary market at $23. And the the painting is currently at $21 a share, right? So I I bought it above market price, thinking that maybe it'll be worth what did I say, 23? So let's say I think it's gonna be worth 25 at one point, or 30 even. I don't know if the market price will ever reach $23 even. It might stay between 21 and 22, and then the painting gets sold off, right? So there's a little there's a little gap where I am unsure if I can ever make that money back, right? So that's all the issues that I have. So revenue ideas. Okay. So I'm all about revenue, as you know, and I like to invest in things where I get a monthly income. So I thought of some ideas for that. The first idea I had was a service to lend out these paintings for events. So some people have events like parties or galleries, and maybe they want paintings to have their guests look at them. Well, these platforms could maybe lend these events the paintings for a fee, and then the owners of the paintings can share in the revenue of that cost, right? So that's one idea. And then another idea I had was someone could start a service kind of like revenue research, but for up and coming artists. So I don't know too much about art except for very common artists like Banksy, Warhol, the other one, Basquiat. But I don't know any up and coming artists. Maybe there's an artist that's selling their paintings right now for $500 and people think he's going to be the next Basquiat. Well, I wouldn't mind buying one of his arts or pieces of art, right? Maybe someone can write reports on new artists and I would buy them and read them and maybe buy that new artist's art, right? Okay. And then another idea I had was an art ETF. So in the stock market, there's something called an ETF where it's by sector, where a company buys up shares of, let's say, data centers, right? So there's Equinox, there's Digital Realty, there's others that I can't think of right now, and they buy shares of, let's say they buy 10 shares of Equinox, they buy 15 shares of Digital Realty, and then they average those out, and then they sell shares of their shares. They sell pieces of their shares to other people, and it all gets averaged out, right? So I thought someone can do that for art. They can buy a bunch of Banksys, they can buy a bunch of Basquiats, they can buy a bunch of Warhols, and then they average them out and they sell shares of, that artist to people. Something I thought was cool. And then the final idea I had was a virtual museum where they show all the Banksys and Warhols on the platform, and people pay to, get some information about them, get a digital tour, and then the owners of the painting get a cut of the revenue. There's like a revenue share agreement, right? Okay, so my opinion. So before fractional art, art was reserved for the ultra rich, right? Because, that $9 million painting that I was looking at, who can afford that, right? Only so many people can afford a $9 million painting and then insure it and store it properly so that it'll be worth more in the future, right? fractional art breaks down the barriers because I can't afford a $3 million painting, but I can afford $200, $500 of a painting, right? And then I'm going to hold it for months, years, and then sell it for more. So that gives me an opportunity to invest in art, which I wouldn't have without fractional art. Yeah. Okay. So, there's also one issue. It's like, how do I know that this is the real Banksy, this is the real Basquiat, and it's not forged? How do I know it's not a SupremeRumHam Banksy, right? So, that's an interesting idea. Someone can authenticate art, I guess, or start a service to authenticate the art, and then I don't know, charge the platform, right? But that would charge consumers too at the same time. I don't know. Yeah. So another thing, it's like what I was missing from the entire fractional art experience is generating revenue, right? Because I can buy the shares at the offering and then I can sell them on the secondary market, but that's a one-time payment. I don't care about one-time payments, to be honest. I want income. I want monthly income from the things I invest in. So that was one problem I had, right? And then the final thing I'm going to say about my opinion about fractional art is it's an alternative asset that can't get manipulated by one moron on Twitter, unlike the stock market or the cryptocurrency market. So that's where I'm a big fan of it, right? And then the price doesn't move very often. The art gets appraised every quarter, or every quarter, and then every 6 months, depending on the lifetime of the art cycle for this purchase cycle, right? Does that make sense? Let me rephrase that. So it gets appraised after 6 months, and then every quarter after those 6 months. That makes more sense, right? So that offering price of $20 is going to last for 6 months. So that there's no movement, right? So that's another great thing. Right. Okay. And then finally, revenue reducers. Transaction fees. This is on the internet, so there's always going to be a transaction fee. You're not going to avoid that. I always talk about transaction fees. I'm actually tired of talking about transaction fees. And then there's commission for the sale. So that painting sells for $11 million, and then the platform might take let's say a 5% fee for that sale. That's money that you can't share in, right? Okay. That's all I have for this episode. Thank you for listening. Have a nice day. Bye.